Turning now to the war in Ukraine, I want to welcome back in retired Air Force Brigadier General Newsmax contributor Blaine Holt and former DIA intelligence officer and author of Putin's Playbook, Russia's Secret Plan to Defeat America. Rebekah Koffler back with us after a little while away. Nice to see you, Rebekah. General, great to have you back on. Rebekah, according to the New York Times, America is in over its head right now in Ukraine. This is the quote: Ukrainians might be better off defining victory as accession to the European Union rather than a complete recapture of all Ukrainian territory in the east. We're talking about the Donbass region. What do you make of that as this war now heads into year two?
Well, isn't it interesting, Rob, that the New York Times is flipping its narrative on its head? I've been warning for the past year that this war is unwinnable, basically because the way that Ukrainian President Zelenskyy defined its definition of victory is kicking out the Russians out of the entire Ukraine, including Crimea, which is an unachievable goal that even General Milley, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, has acknowledged. And so the New York Times right now is just coming to terms with the reality, because Putin is not going to stop waging his brutal war. And so, yes, Ukrainians are dying by the thousand, and it's time to stop the slaughter and get to the table and negotiate and come to peace.
General, do you agree with Rebekah's assessment?
I agree from this standpoint. There's a strategy that's missing in here. And the strategy that's missing is measuring the amount of logistics that are available, mathematically available, to bring to the defense of Ukraine, and then the goals that President Zelenskyy has set forth about expelling all Russians from the Ukrainian borders. There's nothing, that's a completely noble goal. It's, can it be achieved under the certain circumstances that the EU and the United States have set forth about what they would do for Ukraine? We haven't seen decisive air power right from the outset of this thing. So militarily, this thing has taken on much more of a World War I war of attrition flavor, and that just grinds down logistics.
Yeah.
And so is it sustainable?
General, I want to talk to you about what's happening in eastern Ukraine and Bakhmut in a moment. But first, Rebekah, China is apparently increasing their defense budget by 7.2%, a significant increase over what they were spending just a year ago. This, as we keep hearing about a possible Chinese invasion of Taiwan. What do you read into that and that increase, which is pretty substantial?
Yes, Chinese President Xi Jinping is preparing for war, and it is my professional intelligence assessment that he is going to venture an incursion into Taiwan during President Biden's first term, and hopefully the only term. And that is because we see, from the intelligence standpoint, multiple signposts of the preparation for war. She has installed a wartime cabinet. He has directed its military forces to prepare for war. And increasing the military budget is not the only INW indications and warning. The Chinese have already doubled its space order of battle between 2019 and 2021, from 250 satellites to 499. Why is this important? Is because every aspect of warfighting is now conducted through satellites: missile warning, command and control, navigation, targeting, precision strike. So they've learned it from us. The Chinese are also tripling its nuclear arsenal by 2035 to 1,500 warheads. Why is that? Because the number one lesson that she has learned from the Russia-Ukraine conflict is that if you are the top dog in terms of nuclear warfare, nobody's going to touch you. Why is it that President Biden doesn't authorize the deployment of U.S. forces into the theater, into the battlefield?
Right.
It's because he is afraid. He knows that Putin would threaten nuclear Armageddon. Biden acknowledged it to us.
Okay.
And that is the reason why we can't intervene into that conflict and save Ukrainians.
A lot of good points there, Rebekah. General, let's talk about what's going on the ground. So the war passed a year, a couple of weeks ago. Let's go to eastern Ukraine, Bakhmut. The Ukrainians are holding on for now. How long can this last?
Yeah, they're gonna need more supplies, and they're gonna need them right now in order to hold that line in Bakhmut. Now, all is not disastrous on the Ukrainian side of the line. If you go over to the Russian side of the line, they're getting ground up too. Prigozhin is under a lot of pressure with the Wagner Group, and we just learned over the weekend that Kadyrov, a top Putin ally and the leader of the Chechens, has been poisoned. He's sick. He's calling for a doctor not from Moscow, but from UAE.
Yeah.
And that implies a lot of chaos in the Russian camp right now.
Yeah, he wants to be treated outside of Russia. We'll keep an eye on that. Rebekah, just about 30 seconds. This fascinated me last week. We were on the air as this news broke. Sergei Lavrov, Russian foreign minister, apparently had a sit down with our own Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, at the G20. They talked for about 20 minutes, and then we heard nothing more about it. But it's significant because it's the first time that a top U.S. official and a top Russian official got together since the war started. Why haven't we heard about why haven't we heard about what they talked about?
Well, the one thing that they talked about is to get Paul Whelan out, a U.S. Citizen who's been rotting in Russian prison.
Right.
But another thing that I suspect they spoke about is to settle this conflict, because, again, this war is unwinnable. While the Russians have demonstrated tremendous tactical incompetence, in terms of the balance of forces, Russian balance of power is completely disproportionately higher to Ukraine's. And that's, I suspect, what they talked about the graceful withdrawal and exit strategy.
Yeah, good points. In the meantime, Paul Whelan is still behind enemy lines in Russia. I'm just surprised we haven't heard more about what was likely a very important meeting. Rebekah Koffler, hope to have you back on. General Holt, good to see you. Thanks for breaking that down for us.